Shipwrecked 64 is a game that I watched the demo of and waited anxiously for its release, and boy did it not disappoint. Before we start diving into the mystery, a quick summary of the game. Bucky Beaver and his friends are sailing into the sea when their boat crashes, and 3 of Bucky's friends are captured by the wolves on the island. Play each friend's minigame to save them all and sail into the sunset. After you beat the game the first time, you get the 1997 hard mode, where you can go into the different layers of the game files to unveil the secrets behind the company that made it and the mysteries behind the brand. So let's begin the story. This is the story of a company's finding of possible immortality, a man's quest to harvest it, and a game developer determined to expose the truth. Are you ready? Let me tell you a story. 1917. Rex Broadside, the future founder of Broadside Animations, was born to a poor family in the south of the United States. Rex was never taught how to run a business and had a lack of business knowledge and money knowledge, which wouldn't hurt him until later in life. For the time being, he grew up content making animated shorts and comics for the few that would buy. But as he grew older, money became more and more of a concern. But by his mid-20s, he designed a character that would finally give him his first success, Blot. He would use a mix of realism and drawing with his newfound golden rabbit. This success, in turn, caught the attention of major companies.
Rex would produce more films of the same nature, until eventually he was approached by a company who offered him the deal of a lifetime. Little did he know, this deal led to him selling off his character, as he was so quick to sign on, he didn't read very heavily into what he was signing into.
With Rex giving ownership of his one popular character away, he worked tirelessly to make it in the public eye again. And that's when he came up with Bucky Beaver and the rest of his friends. After the great success of what must have been multiple animation and comic book series featuring these beloved characters, Rex complains about how he can't stand the sight of his creations anymore.
I was at a store and I saw an aisle of toys, and there was so much stuff there with my characters on it, being sold, effectively under my name. I hate how big this is all becoming, I really do. Somehow, by animating stuff in grade school, I set up the rest of my life for this. My entire name has been turned into something to sell things under.
And as he loses more and more control in the company, a theme park is opened in his name,
against the will of Rex Broadside.
There is something so horribly wrong going on here. They are trying to convert my brand into a theme park on some island in bumfuck nowhere. They are gonna slap my name on everything, use my creations, basically make a mockery out of everything I spent my entire life building.
But shortly after the opening of his park, only the worst was waiting for Rex Broadside.
We start. Let's all give a moment of silence to Rex Broadside, the man who managed to spring this whole park into life. The man who taught us we can be whoever we want if we just put in the work to do so. We miss you, Rex.
Sometime after Rex's death, a new CEO takes Rex's place. A man known as Mark Mullins, a man who will watch as his company grows to the biggest it had ever been, to the downfall of everything and everyone he loved. Mark's journey starts with an unprecedented discovery of a metal found underneath Bucky's amusement park on Ultra Terra. A strange metal was found in what workers called the Stitch Caves, large holes in the island full of veins and seemingly some kind of fleshy substance within the dirt and rock of the island. When researched, the metal has strange abilities. Every single chunk of the material appears to have its own pulse. And with a certain process, taking a dead body and merging it with the metal and putting it in a mascot suit, they can create what they call a starling, an immortal being.
Have you heard of a starling? It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? It reminds you of Beauty, right? Well, in reality, they are the very mascots that roam around our parks. Under that costume is a starling, controlling it and manipulating it without any human influence. They also use the costume as a skin so that they don't receive infection. You may have even run into one around the office. but that's besides the point. With our starling creation process, we are able to, effectively, create immortality.
And now, with all that said, let me introduce you to the cast of characters in the mascot suits. Firstly, we have Olive Otter, worn by Olivia Finch, Giovanni Goose, worn by Gary Wilson, Walter Walrus, worn by Nathan Stewart, and finally, Bucky Beaver, worn by Brandon Lester. Now for my first theory, that Brandon Beaver was the first successful starling. I believe this because in the video Workplace Toxicity, it is about the complaints going to Mark about the park. And one of the complaints is, why the hell does Brandon never take off the costume?
They also use the costume as a skin so that they don't receive infection.
Also, in the demo for the game, there was an audio tape recorded by Olivia Finch.
Hello, this is Olivia Finch. I'd like to please submit a complaint. Anonymously, please. Brandon has been showing up every night to my residence. Brandon Lester, you know, the other costume guy? He just walks by, still wearing the suit, sometimes just placing his hand on the window. Other times, he'd grab the sliding glass door, jiggle the handle around, like he wanted in. I'll let the dead eyes of that stupid costume stare back at me. Last night, though, is the reason I'm doing this. Brandon walked over and just began to slam his head against the door. I don't know why, but it kept me up for the several hours this went on. He only left it around 4 a.m, stumbling away, leaving a gross stain all over the window. Please, just deal with him. I can't afford to keep losing sleep.
Then to really seal the deal, there is a hidden Dropbox link in the video Broadside Beach 2, which when typed in, directs you to a page which shows the original tests of starling. Click on Gen Current, and the first mascot that pops up is none other than Brandon Lester. So with Brandon Lester being the first, who is the second? This one's quite simple. While Brandon died of fentanyl overdose, the other 3 had a more gruesome fate, with Brandon seemingly confused and furious at his newfound immortality and the new vessel he resides in. He goes on a rampage. During the game, if you fail any of the mini-games multiple times, you are presented with the mascot costumes and how they died, and you quickly find a pattern of Brandon being in every video. And we know that this was Bucky acting on his own, and not Mark following the directions of the Broadside Lab employees, telling him to commit these murders, because of this message. As 3 victims emerged, it was best to fix that before it became a public ordeal. Obviously, they wouldn't want Bucky just killing everyone right in front of all the guests, as well as how messy he does it. A good example is Giovanni Goose. Leaving his body extremely dismembered left him more
Undesirable.
to make into a starling. After all these incidents, it was decided to close the island amusement park, but not all was lost, because another one was opened in Florida called Studio Grounds.
Guys, remember our previous park, Broadside Beach. Unfortunately, we have chosen it is best if we sunset that project. Don't get us wrong though. We love that place. We really do. But look at the numbers. The park was not bringing us too much success. It cost a lot of money to run, and we weren't breaking even anymore, so we decided the best place to start would be a real theme park with rich decor and a real sense of presence. Studio Grounds is the new generation of theme park entertainment, if you will. And plus, we had some accidents at the Broadside offices and the island throughout the time it was running. So we have taken extra measures to make sure that Studio Grounds is about as safe as it can be.
And let's talk about the development of the game. After the big success of Bucky, Mark hires Cogwar Studios to make a Bucky Beaver game. We meet the developers later in the game, on Layer 3, with the 3 layers being Connor Thomas, the head game developer, Harry Waters, assistant game developer, and Elizabeth Baker, who does the artwork, and also it seems to do the music from a video titled Crystals that plays Mary Had a Little Lamb, is performed by Elizabeth Baker. But not all is well. There seems to be tension between the head developer, Connor Thomas, and the CEO of Broadside, Mark Mullins. As seen in this tape, Connor decides to make a character with no arms to poke fun at Mark's wife, who had recently lost both her arms.
Stubbler, I think Liz called him. Yeah, he's funny. I think the funniest part is his missing arms. I managed to sneak in a jab towards Mark's wife and having her arm amputated. She was fresh on my mind when I was suggesting the idea to Liz. And hey, her making her a little guy a hopeless romantic as well. It lines up pretty damn well with how Mark...
And these jabs now bring into the major motivator for the story, Harley Mullins.
This week hasn't been the greatest. Well, let's say that lightly. No, this week has been horrible. Everything feels like it's just going off the deep end, and I'm just starting to wonder how much I got left. Harley's still in the hospital. I haven't been acting right. No one around has been acting right lately. I took her to the hospital. I walked out on my own. They said that she's gonna be there for a while.
Now looking back, there was a key message that I left out about the reason why they started the Starling project. In the presentation, Mark states,
With our Starling creation process, we are able to, effectively, create immortality. We have a plan. Do any of you guys remember Rex? Well, if we want to outperform Disney, we need our founder to be here and to be alive.
Now if you remember to Rex's audio tape, in his last years of his life, he didn't have much influence on the company. So why would Mark want to bring Rex back to life, especially if that means giving up power from his hands? Obviously that's not what Mark wants. I believe the true reason to starting the Starling project was to save his dying wife.
I just looked at the numbers. Our entire brand's been going down the drain. The stocks, I've never seen stocks get this fucking low. And we're still bringing people on. We're still expanding. At this point, what the fuck's a layoff gonna do? It'll sink us further into the shit! The best option we got is to cut the game studio we've hired. Okay, we've been basically dumping money into their pockets, and I don't know what exactly they're making. I haven't heard from them in months. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna schedule a meeting with them. Okay? And if they don't have exactly what they've promised, we cut them off. We'd save our asses in the long run. It'd probably give us a fighting chance. It's... God, fuck. You know what? I just realized I'm throwing the exact same amount of money I'm paying for Harley's medical bills into this fucking game studio! I've been playing this for about 2 hours now. And I'm not seeing the widespread appeal you've been promising us. The characters who you promised would have depth and life. They are just flat. I thought that's the entire point of a 3D game.
So, what can we do to fix it?
No, Liz. This isn't a fix the game issue. It's a fix your perspective issue. Mark, you are sitting in front of some of the greatest technology of the decade, and you're gonna brush it off?
Connor, I'm not brushing anything off. I'm just trying to understand where this...
I'm sorry to say, Mark, but it's true. It's not that we've made a bad game. We've all exceeded the industry standard. What we're having a hard time passing is your thick skull and...
Connor! Stop. Look, I'm so sorry about him. He's just under a lot of...
Is it Harley? Is it not worth it anymore because you're trying to treat her instead?
What?
Yeah, I said it.
What are you bringing her into this for?
Because I bet that's what you're gonna do. You can't keep funding our 2 years worth of work. Gotta buy her a fancy casket.
Unbelievable.
Mark, look, I'm really sorry.
Now, Liz, you're fine, okay? But I want you to know that we are done, professionally. All right? I don't want to work with any of you guys again.
And with that, the game is cut off. Whether to try to reclaim some development costs, or just to make extra cash, Mark decides to release the game anyways. The game was pulled after just 3 days. Reports of extra video had been added to the game. This is the part of the story that has a big hole. All we know is that somehow Connor gets his hands on the footage of Brandon Lester's killings and wants to expose Broadside as the shady company that they are. So he gets his son Patrick to upload Brandon Lester's killings footage to the game. Now hold on. So this was in the original story how it went, but in the comments of Super Horror Bro Mike's playthrough, a dev of the game comments stating that Connor was not involved in the revenge plot. By the way, I checked that he actually is a developer of the game, and he is. So well, at this point, I don't really know who put the footage into the game, but I have a real shot in the dark coming soon. But anyways, we're getting off track. So somehow the footage of Brandon Lester's killings get added to the tapes, then 3 days later, the game gets pulled from shelves. Shortly after that, Connor Thomas commits suicide. Years later, Harry and Elizabeth and Thomas rebuild Shipwrecked 64 to the playable game it is now. During one of the videos uploaded on one of the creators' channels, you get this message.
Romeo, stand by. Lima, X-ray, Bravo, Charlie, Golf. Romeo, stand by. Lima.
This is also the sound that plays when you get too close to the enemy in this game. I tried putting this into the decoder language used in the game called Beaver Scratch, but I didn't receive any results. At the end of the game, we get a cutscene of the Scarecrow, who is called the Husk. Still confused as to what or who he is, but I guess time will tell. The last loose thread is another character that is very mysterious, named Vandal. In the game, he gets his pictures next to the rest of the cast, and a couple of cutscenes of him walking around the facility.
1015, Cairo International, at 1520, in 230
The only other footage of Vandal we have comes from a YouTube channel, where he goes to Mark Mullins' house and lets himself in.
Hello friends! Nice to see you all again. Today, I just wanted to leave a little message on here for my buddy Mark. Yes, that's Mark. He's a good friend of mine, you know. I just wanted to show him, and you all, something as well. Look at that! Quite a luxurious house, huh? Here's the front, if you were curious. Oh, there's a nice view of the mountains, too.
You can stop trying to hide, Mark. You think moving to a vacation home will get me off your tail? Check the kitchen, why don't you? I left you a little gift. From a friend to a friend. Love, JD. The description reads, ever since she's been gone, you've been hogging this place to yourself. That's not fair.
Now to my dearie.
That Vandal is the one that uploaded the tapes into the cartridge. We know that Vandal was a close friend to Mark, even knowing his wife's medical state. I believe that JD learned too much, and that led to Mark killing him. Mark, filled with despair, put him into a starling. After all, the starlings hadn't been able to speak up until now. But Vandal was different. Living in the caves, calling them home, Vandal was put into a mole costume, foreshadowing the mole that he would become. Later, he would hunt for Mark, his killer, leaving him a gift in the kitchen, a copy of the game that destroyed Broadside's reputation. Now this theory is pretty far out there. I'm pretty sure I'm 98% wrong on Vandal, but there is little to no information on this character, so this was the best I could come up with. But anyways, I really enjoyed working on this video. The amount of secrets and puzzles to jump through was truly amazing. Respect to the developer to really go out there. This is a really scary game and a very difficult one. I know he's been getting some criticisms about how difficult it is, but when you make a truly hard game, that's just what happens. Make sure you guys subscribe.